So there's been no shortage of frustration towards the Switch 2 since the reveal of the pricing around the system. I think for the most part with the hardware itself, the games, people are generally okay or even excited for it, but the pricing seems to be the hype killer right now. And on top of that, we have Nintendo making the rounds now when it comes to PR, giving all kinds of interviews, not only with the developers behind the hardware itself, but also some of the executives like Doug Bowser. He has been making the rounds with a bunch of interviews, and there's one part in particular that is really, just getting obliterated online right now. And I wanted to talk about that here today with Doug Bowser kind of telling you if you can't afford a Switch 2, you should just buy the current Switch, and how that's now drawing a lot of comparisons to the Xbox One launch. So this should be good. Guys, if you enjoy this video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if you're new. This is posted up this is CBC. Doug Bowser, of course, talking to them about the Switch 2, how it was just revealed, which I guess one important piece of context here, this would have been on April 2nd. It was before all the tariff stuff got announced and everything got thrown into chaos for them. I believe it was like right after the reveal. So like the afternoon of the reveal for the Switch 2 and all that pricing stuff. So it wasn't necessarily something that happened just like a day or two ago. This was an interview that was given to CBC and many other outlets, and they were all under embargo to my understanding until the beginning of this week. The idea, obviously, from Nintendo is to continue the conversation around the Switch 2 and probably in their mind, the excitement of the Switch 2 heading into this week, of course, a week out from when the Mario Kart World Direct will be. Well, that does make me think a bit about the answer that was given here, and if they were necessarily expecting the amount of backlash they're seeing right now online around the price point. Because, if I'm there, and I'm sure many of you, the thing with Nintendo of America, and people need to really understand this, they're not setting the pricing, they're not making a lot of the decisions. All that's done Nintendo headquarters in Japan, okay? Nintendo of America, their job is, while they do localization, distribution, stuff like that, they are mostly for marketing and trying to relay the information to the US, all right? So trying to make sense of it and then provide answers like these, I guess. And it didn't go over great. Let's take a look. This is, again, with the CBC, Doug Bowser. And what happened here was he was asked about the pricing, specifically about how the Switch 2 is expensive. It just in the world of Nintendo it is. And the thing with Nintendo is, while they could have a system like this that's priced comparably to the PS5, the digital version of that is $450. It started out at $400. They raised the price $50. That's our at $450 for it, or $500 for the bundle with Mario Kart World. And conversely, with the Xbox, it's $500, or you go down lower for the Xbox Series S. Basically, it is priced right in there for what we're seeing from other 4K systems, you could say, at this point. Well, for Nintendo, that is on the higher end, because one of their advantages tends to be they're going to cut corners and have concessions around their hardware to attain a more affordable price point. All right. And even so, after that, they'll look for ways to cut down even further and create, say, a Switch Lite that coming in at $200. So this recent generation with the Switch, they had a wide range, technically. The Switch Lite starting at $200 all the way up to the Switch OLED if you want the nice screen and stuff at $350. Not the case now. It starts at $450. All right. And this is what he had to say. As we look at Nintendo Switch 2 and you think about the feature sets that I talked about, we believe that the pricing is appropriate for the value of the machine and the gameplay experience overall. We recognize there are some people that may not be able to afford the Switch 2's price point. That's why we wanted to make the other Switch platforms available so people still have an opportunity to come into our gaming universe, be a part of these characters in these worlds, and see value, if you will, in whatever rung of the platform they come in. He goes on to say, sure, there are extenuating outside circumstances that could affect positively or negatively, and we can't necessarily control those. With that, he's kind of referencing the looming tariffs that were, about to hit, and they did after this interview. What we can control is what we think we've got a device that is going to bring more developers onto the platform that we can lean into as a developer ourselves or a publisher ourselves, and as a result, bring a lot of smile to people's faces. So the thing with this, I don't really see a lot of people who are really broken up about the price point of the Switch 2. Now, there are some who are looking at like, okay, that's kind of pricey. Maybe I'll wait a bit. But the $80 game, $80 base game, is what people are really frustrated with because it goes beyond the $10 jump, say from 70 to 80, because then you're going to look at just in general across the industry, what does that mean for everyone else? A $450 Switch 2 doesn't really mean a lot for everyone else, all right? Because we've already seen a $700 PlayStation 5 Pro. And then even if you look in the PC handheld space that people continue to compare the Switch itself and now the Switch 2 alongside, people are putting it next to a ROG Ally X. It's an $800 handheld. So the console itself really doesn't do much to move, say, the pricing structure, all right? Not like this $80 Mario Kart world. So to me, that makes sense why people are mostly frustrated around it. So when I look at an answer like this, I will admit, I also thought of Don Mattrick back in the day. And if you're unfamiliar, I did a video actually about this because in some ways, it sounds crazy, but Don Mattrick kind of ahead of his time a bit there with the Xbox One. I don't think everything about the Xbox One would have been accepted now. Specifically, the always online connection would have been a problem. Basically, the Xbox One, the idea was it needed to be connected to the internet at all times. Otherwise, it just wouldn't work. And for a little while, the Kinect was required to be plugged into the Xbox One. They eventually backtracked on that ahead of launch, but that was an entire thing. And that Kinect being in the box made it $500. In fact, the pushback for the Xbox One really wasn't about the price much, although the PS4 at $400 didn't really help their case. I mean, it was like the PS4 is more powerful and it's $100 cheaper. I wonder which one I'm going to buy. That's really the issue that Microsoft ran into. And of course, the concern around a camera being in your house and required to be plugged in, and the elimination of used games. Microsoft, I think, went with that strategy because they saw publishers were fighting back against used games with things like the $10 online pass from EA for Madden to play online if you bought it used. You gotta give them $10 more. I guess they figured, hey, if we really lean into that, the destruction of used games, these publishers will be all too happy to throw all of their games on our platform because it should be more profitable for them in the long run. At least that was the theory there, right? Didn't turn out that way, and Sony buried them immediately with their, what was like a 30-second commercial of them handing a game to another person as to how you share stuff there. But because of all that, Don Mattrick is on record with one of the craziest quotes ever. When asked about the always online connection, it's infamous, it's right here. This was on IGN. I actually went back to 2013 for this quote. This is where he was asked about that. Hey, what do you do if you don't have an online connection? And it didn't help that they were citing people in the military who, I mean, yeah, they don't necessarily have internet connection when you're on a nuclear sub, as he says here. And he kind of made it like a joke. It's like, it doesn't seem like a great piece of PR there to be like, oh, the person on that nuclear sub. How crazy is that? Well, we have an Xbox 360 for it. That was basically it. Fortunately, we have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360. If you have zero access to the internet, that is an offline device, basically saying, hey, buy the last generation system. My question would be, hey, what if I already have that system, but I want the next one? Like, I want to upgrade to the new one? Like, what do we do there? That never was asked. Nothing there for the follow-up. Now, eventually, we know what happened with the Xbox One. It did a lot of damage to Microsoft. Phil Spencer came in and started trying to change the overall idea and the vision of the brand. And I mean, since then, they've been doing as much as possible to lean into the idea of a consumer-friendly image. All right. But that's how much damage Don Mattrick did there, even though he wasn't necessarily far off on the idea that eventually used games would go away, because we're staring down right now the barrel of a like all digital future. Currently, more people are buying digitally than physically, just outright. The entire PC market's all digital now. That means, yeah, there's no real, I don't say ownership, but no real ownership, but no real used games. So he was a little ahead of his time there. He went too early, I'll say. Well, when you look at the things that Doug Bowser's saying here, when I see these executives being asked questions a lot, I feel like 9 times out of 10, if it's a difficult question, they give you the PR, the corporate non-answer. This would have been the time to use the non-answer. I think the price point of the Switch 2 can stand on its own with the tech that they're showing off. It's not like it feels like people are looking at the comparisons and they're like, whoa, this is better than I thought it would be. Like, we're seeing comparisons next to the PS5. Don't know if I'd go that far currently, although who knows? Maybe we'll see when it comes out and Digital Founders is able to really dive into it and see what exactly this thing can do, and it's even better than we thought there. And then naturally from Nintendo's first-party side, the idea, though, is, hey, you know what? We're coming up with something that's a little more future-proof, as some of these developers are even saying, oh, it's kind of like developing for a mid-range PC. It's like, oh, well, that's interesting. That's from Nintendo. But when you hear that stuff, you go, well, you know, I thought it was 400, it's 450, but it seems like it's going to punch even further above its weight class than what the Switch did, which Switch had some very impressive releases. By the end of it, though, like this past year, I mean, it's struggling to that finish line right now. It is, the games coming out on that it's tough. it's not great in terms of visuals and performance and stuff. So in that case, maybe this is something that will last longer for you with the $450 price point now. But really difficult when you go, oh yeah, no, just buy the old one. Don't worry. I mean, we know that Nintendo is going to support the current Switch at least through 2026. They have games that are announced for next year already. But when you have this kind of an answer of, we have a system for you, it's technically the Switch, the last gen one, the one from 2017, technically. It's not going to go over well when you're an executive, in this case, the head of Nintendo of America, just basically throwing it out there very nonchalantly when there are like genuine concerns and frustrations around the pricing of the system, but especially so the games, then also the subscriptions, the C button that's tied to always on, like paying to play online, which that should be out the door by now anyway. One of these three companies needs to make that move so we just get to that point in like 4 or 5 years. Maybe it'll be Microsoft, I don't know. But yeah, there's so much stuff basically that's stacked up. When this interview came out, I saw this quote and I was like, that's not going to go over well. But basically that would have been my strategy. Say nothing at all. Like, really, I mean, realistically, he had like the fork in the road for the decision of what to say here in his mind. Is like, I can give the corporate non-answer by essentially hyping up the Switch 2 specifications and, hey, you know, we think it is valued at this. Look at the competitors around it. I mean, it fits right in, and in some cases is a better deal. Or I can go the other path and try to sell you on one of our other products that you probably already have. I mean, there's like 150 some odd million Switch systems out there. Most likely, the person who has these concerns already has a Switch, already has multiple Switch systems. Maybe they have kids with Switch systems. They're like, you know, it'd be cool to be able to upgrade to the next one. But wow, is this thing getting expensive? Like, that's something I probably would have avoided if I was Doug Bowser. But hey, maybe he was kind of blindsided. I don't really know how that's possible, because I feel like if many of us were in the room while this was being discussed, hey, we're going $80 on Mario Kart World, most of us go, okay, I think that's going to annoy people online a lot. Let's figure this out. Let's workshop this. Let's come up with different questions that could be asked. And one of them would have been, hey, what do we do if we can't buy this thing? I mean, it just seems obvious, and that's why it's also so weird, and it comes off as so tone deaf to pretty much everyone. But let me know what you guys think about this down below. Man, the PR cycle right now for Nintendo has not been great with the Switch 2. And again, a lot of it seems to be things around the hardware, but let me know down below in the comments how you feel right now about the $450 price point after the Direct showing off the Switch 2, but also some of the comparisons that have been going around with the Switch 2 versus PS4, PS5, and Xbox Series S games. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.